Hello everyone and welcome back to another patch notes video. This video is going over patch 1.9.0 that has just been released with the Saw chapter. So the very first thing you will notice is that the winter theme is no longer there. It has all been removed. Everything has been changed back to normal. No more Christmas decorations. The gift mystery boxes are now normal mystery boxes and they're back to their original icon and costs. So no more cheap mystery boxes. There's no more winter props in game. And there's no more winter party starters. Also implemented in this patch is the new Saw chapter, which brings us a new killer, the pig, a new survivor, Detective Tap, and a new map, the Gideon Meat Plant. And the name of the map we got is The Game. If you want to learn more about the pig's power and perks and the new survivors perks, I have made a video going over all of that. And I have also made a video showing you guys the new map. I will link both of these videos in the description below, as well as give you a link to them with the little eye icon right now. The next general change to the game they made was that they added a secondary power key binding to the killer controls. So if we go over here to the settings and then go to controls and scroll down a little, you can see that there's this new secondary power key binding. So this key binding is left control by default on the PC and left bumper on console. What this secondary power does is it allows the killer to use a part of their power without that button being shared with the interaction and pickup item. So this key binding will apply to killers like Hag and the Pig. For Hag, this will be her teleport to trap button, and that means that she will no longer teleport to her traps with spacebar, making it easier to play her so that you don't accidentally teleport while breaking a pallet, vaulting a window, or picking up a survivor. Then for the pig, her secondary power is crouching. So let's move on to the killer changes. The status effect blindness saw a buff this patch, and I think this will make it seen a lot more because before blindness didn't really do a whole lot, so not many killers ran it. If you are not aware of what blindness is, it is a status effect that can be applied to some killer powers through add-ons. What blindness does is prevent aura reading perks from working. So perks such as Bond, Object of Obsession, or Empathy. It also negates the aura reading powers of items such as maps or the add-ons you can put on the keys. So the reason no one really used it before is because it only affected aura reading caused by perks or add-ons, and since most survivors don't really run aura reading perks or bring maps that much, there was no real use to it. So in order to make blindness more appealing, it now negates survivors' built-in aura reading, which means you can no longer see the auras of dying or hooked survivors. And this change also applies to the killer perk Hex Third Seal, which makes it so when the killer hits a survivor, they are afflicted with blindness permanently until the hex is destroyed. So look out for that hex perk now because some killers may try running it. Now there is a bug at the moment with the blindness status effect, and that is when you hook somebody, the bubble still appears around the hook they were put on. But it will probably be fixed in the next patch, so don't expect it to stick around. The other killer perk that was adjusted this patch is Save the Best for Last. Its text and functionality has been updated. The successful attack cooldown will not be lost when changing targets during a chase, and will continue to be active as long as a chase is held for more than 20 seconds. Moving on, for killers, scratch marks have been adjusted so that they should no longer be showing up on a floor above a survivor and up on the walls that are opposite of a survivor running. However, scratch marks will still show up under floors when a survivor is running above it. So this should fix some of the inaccurate scratch marks that just appear on the map super far away from where the survivor actually is. And then next up we have a lot of nurse balances coming in. This is to help adjust her so that it is easier to blink with her and that survivors get better feedback about where the nurse actually is. So I'm just gonna go down the list here. So after blinking, the nurse used to have a special attack with different speed values and detection zones, basically auto-aim. This has been removed. The nurse will now have a regular lunge after blinking, so keep this in mind. She will have to aim a little more precisely after blinks now. Then, the duration of her blink now depends on how long the player charged the blink for, rather than the distance traveled during the blink. The time required to fully charge a blink is 2 seconds, and the maximum distance traveled is 20 meters, and the time required to cover this distance, 1.5 seconds, remains unchanged. So it should not affect anyone's muscle memory at all. You should still be able to blink the same way you were before. This just means how fast she goes through the blink animation and appears before you. Her lunge speed has been adjusted. She will now accelerate to a maximum speed of 6.9 meters per second during the lunge, like other killers. Previously, her regular non-blink attack was slower than the other killers due to her reduced movement speed. So this means that she can basically have a normal lunge speed like all the other killers and will be able to hit you with her lunge. So you can't juke her attack as easily anymore when she is not blinking at you. Her reappearance time is now much shorter and should be occurring as she blinks. This should remove the feeling that her collision is in place before she is visible and allow for visual feedback in order to play against the nurse. So a lot of you probably can relate to this where you try to move, but you get body blocked by the nurse before she appears, and then you kind of get stuck, and then she gets a free hit on you. This change makes it so that she will actually appear as soon as that collision takes place, and you won't feel like you're getting body blocked by nothing anymore. Then they've updated how they calculate where the nurse blinks. This change allows the nurse to blink upwards and downwards with more accuracy. This change has also enabled the nurse to vary how far she blinks, allowing her to blink closer when previously she would have committed to the distance she had charged. This will significantly improve the nurse's ability to blink. The following points will address the additional balance changes that should counterbalance the improved blink. So what this change means is that nurse can now blink upstairs with ease. She can finally blink up basement stairs, coal tower stairs. She can blink to the second story of buildings from the outside, maybe even on the boat. I haven't tested the boat yet. And on the new map, she will be able to blink downstairs just by looking down, and upstairs by looking up. So be aware for that. Now, with all these nurse balances coming out, a bug has happened, and it has been confirmed by a dev that this is a bug. An unintended consequence of this patch is that when the nurse hits someone after the blink, or even if she just swings after the blink, she will not get her fatigue until she does the full animation. So either the entire miss animation or the entire blood wipe animation. This punishes nurses really hard for getting a hit, and hopefully it will be fixed soon because it does make it harder to play the nurse. But I just want you guys to know this is a bug, so it will be fixed. This is not a permanent change to her. And finally, we have the map changes. First, they added a logic that limits the number of generic pallets that can spawn inside the bottom preschool map to 3, and have made the outside pallets procedural. So I went ahead and took a look at bottom preschool. There are 3 pallets upstairs. They seem to spawn here every time, or at least every time I tried. And in the basement of bottom preschool, there is only 1 pallet that spawns there now, and this pallet is procedural, meaning that it will either spawn next to the pipes or it will spawn next to the wall, but there will never be 2 pallets in the basement of bottom. So this change does confuse me a little bit because it says only 3 will spawn in preschool, but actually 4 spawn in preschool every single time. So I don't know if this is a bug or intended. As for the pallets that spawn on the outside of preschool, it is definitely procedural now because I have had this map with sometimes 1 pallet up, sometimes 2, and then sometimes all 3. I'm not sure where these pallets are sharing their spawn points with, but they definitely do vary. However, the killer can get very unlucky and get a variation of preschool with 3 pallets on the outside, so I do not think that this changed as much as originally thought. Next, we have changed the minimum and maximum number of procedural pallets that can spawn. This is a global change. Then they implemented a new pallet management system that allows them to tweak the minimum and maximum amount of procedural pallets that can spawn per map. And then, for the more exciting change, they increased the minimum spawning distance between procedural pallets from 8 meters to 10 meters, and this is a global change. So I'm going to go ahead and use Blood Lodge as an example here. As you can see in these pallet loops, there is only 1 pallet per prop grouping, I suppose, since it's no longer a double pallet loop. So all of these here that used to be double pallet loops are now single pallet loops, with the pallet spawning in a randomized location. There will no longer be double pallet loops. I want to show this working again on bottom preschool in the OP house that used to have 4 pallets. There will now only be 2 pallets, 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs. The placement of these pallets is randomized, so they will switch between their locations, but there will only ever be 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs. And finally, they reduced the number of pallets that can spawn on the edges of the backwater swamp maps. And then they made a bunch of bug fixes. As always, I will link the patch notes below so you can read all of these for yourself, but I'm not going to show all the bugs they fixed because not all of them are possible to show. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has helped you out, and as always, good luck out there in the fog, and see you next time.